he said it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles the body.
Oh!
The body is made to process. He said it's what comes out of the mouth that defiles the body because it shows the intentions of the heart.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast, My Sister's Keeper. My name is Aviana, and I thank you for tuning in with me this week. So for this week's episode, I am going to be talking about boundaries and unforgiveness. This is a topic, truthfully, that the Lord is still working on me with, and I just want to be able to share the revelations that I've gotten this far. If you're new to this channel, I talk about all things faith, fitness, and balanced living. I would love for you to join our community that we have here. This is a space for us to just be on our faith journeys and to get to know God and also build community with other like-minded followers of Christ. Okay, first I wanted to say I appreciate everyone who checked in on my last video about the mind of Christ. If you haven't watched it yet, I'm a little biased, but I think it's really good, and I would greatly appreciate if you go over there, check it out, leave some comments about what you think. But for today's topic, we're talking about boundaries versus unforgiveness. So especially in this stage, in this era of social media, and just in life in general, I think boundaries are super important. And I think boundaries are more common now because we're able to see other people's lives and how, like, oh, maybe the things that I'm experiencing aren't necessarily normal. Maybe the things that I'm experiencing is actually dysfunction, but because I've never seen anything else, I didn't know it wasn't normal. And most times when you go to college or you're just put in different environments in general, that's where you're able to see, okay, the differences between some family structures versus other family structures, and just interact with different people who grew up differently than you did. Again, boundaries are essential to every walk of life, not just in romantic relationships, but they're also essential in familial, in platonic, and also in our faith journey. I think in order to secure your faith, in order to make sure that your faith and your fire is always burning, putting up boundaries spiritually is super important. One thing that I do specifically is like and you can put up boundaries with yourself as well. Like one thing that I do is like, okay, at a certain time, I'm always reading my Bible, I'm getting into my word, or if there's something that cuts into that time, let's say someone wants to call me or there's an event, I'm like, you know what? No, that's the time that I dedicate to God in order to keep my fire burning. And even in ministry, if you're a part of a ministry, I'm a part of the ministry at my local church, and that can be overwhelming if you don't have boundaries put in place, because it's not the fact that God's business never stops. It's just the fact that you have to take care of yourself first. And I've seen a lot of people burn out from doing ministries as well. Okay, so now let's just talk about how I got this topic anyways. I'm currently in a season where relationships in my life are transitioning honestly for the better, but it's because it's different than what I've experienced before. I realized that I need to act in a different way. I need to show up in a different way and establish boundaries so that my mental health, physical health, and everything else concerning me would prosper. And there's been a couple of instances where there's been little rifts here and there. And I realized, I'm like, no, God, like, I want to put this boundary up because I know this is what's best for me to keep me safe. But then the Holy Spirit challenged me, and he was like, is this a boundary or is this unforgiveness?
Savannah, slow down.
Specifically, is this unforgiveness according to the betrayal that you feel like you felt? And I said, oh. Like, I didn't know you were coming for me today. So once he said that, I really had to sit with it, because it's not just one particular situation that comes to mind, but there was different people in my life where I realized I put up boundaries, but it might just be unforgiveness, or it may have been fueled by unforgiveness. The boundary itself wasn't the bad thing. But before I get into anything else, I want to say right now is that boundaries are objective. Boundaries are for the benefit of you. You think about these things, you bring them to God, and you implement those boundaries. You take the data or the information that person has given you based off of their actions, and you implement the boundary. However, unforgiveness is very subjective. It's based off of you. It's based off of self. It's based off of your emotions, your flesh. So when you have unforgiveness, it's supposed to be a defense, but the defense is actually the boundary, if you get what I'm saying. Unforgiveness is offensive because it lives in the spirit of offense. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all, I hope y'all picking up what I'm putting down. And the analogy that he gave me, because if you haven't noticed yet, I love analogies, and that's just the way that my brain works. But the analogy that he gave me is unforgiveness is literally like a cannon, and resentment, bitterness, and all these different things is the cannonball within the unforgiveness. So when we live in unforgiveness, we are the cannon, and then the resentment, the bitterness, the roots that are getting into our heart that are not of Christ, those things are the cannonball. But just like how a cannon is meant for defense. It's meant to be shot against different ships to protect the ship that it's on, right? But if you watch Pirates of the Caribbean and Jack Sparrow's dancing around everywhere, but if you were to hit that cannon while it was loaded, the cannon would implode. It would destroy the ship that it was actually on. So when you harbor unforgiveness in your heart against people, it's actually a ticking time bomb. It's actually you having a grenade in your hand with the pin pulled, looking at it like, what am I supposed to do with this? Thinking about what's going to happen next. Like, oh, I'm protecting myself because I'm ready if somebody comes, but the pin's already pulled. Therefore, it's already counted down. Therefore, it's about to explode. And all you need is one thing to trigger it, and then boom. That's what unforgiveness is. And truthfully, y'all, when he gave me all this revelation, I was like, oh, okay. And I genuinely had to sit with myself. I tried to record this video yesterday, but I was just not in this space in my heart where I fully let go of a lot of things. And I realized it was unforgiveness in my heart towards certain people. But the thing about it is the betrayal is real. That's the one thing I want to say. The betrayals can be real. The feelings can be real, and the emotions can be real, and they need to be validated. I'm not saying invalidate yourself, but if someone is constantly abusing you, hurting you, or anything like that, because I believe wholeheartedly 100%, and it is biblical to put up barriers around yourself so that they can keep you safe. And if you are in any experiences where you feel physically, emotionally, or spiritually, or any other way abused, then you need to leave. And I'm never going to tell someone not to. However, I believe that in certain situations, especially with family or close proximity relationships like friendships, it's about putting up those boundaries, yes, but making sure that you have the communication necessary in order to understand what's going on. So making sure that you're advocating yourself and you're addressing the issue, and you're saying, this is the issue. Because of this, I'm going to implement this boundary. A boundary is not the silent treatment. A boundary is not stonewalling or gaslighting or anything like that. That's not a boundary, because that's not out of the heart of God. The heart of God is to be like, you know what? You hurt me. Like, here, there's a Bible verse. This is the thing that freed me. All you people pleasers, please just listen to this. It says, if your brother sins against you, rebuke him. That's a sentence. That's a Bible verse. That's it. So if someone does something against you and you feel betrayal, right? You rebuke them, be like, you know what? I really didn't appreciate that you did that. And not in a, oh, you, like, come with the heart of God, like these are God's children. Speak to them in love and genuinely try to understand, not necessarily what they did, but the why of why they did it. And I feel like if we were able to be in a space of understanding why someone did something and understanding the contents, we will be able to establish boundaries and to move forward in a healthy manner. And then another verse that I want to bring up is when, before the disciples went with Jesus onto their long-term ministry trip, Jesus told them, if you have any strife or anything with anybody else, any disagreements or any of that, come into unity, right? Because God knows that if you're in that place of a divided heart, if you're double-minded in any areas, you can't stand. A house divided against itself cannot stand. You're even more powerful when you're able to reconcile and be in unity, like, for how good and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. Like, God desires reconciliation, restoration, and unity. And I believe sometimes it can be challenging, especially if these people are closer to you, especially if these people are family members, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, whatever it may be. Like, it can be hard, and it is, or I don't want to say hard. It can be challenging to do that, because you're like, God, like, they actually hurt me and I don't want to do it. There's been times where I didn't know it was unforgiveness, but I'm like, God, I don't feel right. I'm angry at this person because they hurt me so bad. But then in reality, who is that killing? It's supposed to be a defense. Unforgiveness is supposed to be a defense. The anger that you're feeling, which is a secondary emotion, is supposed to be a defense against what they did. But in actuality, it's just hurting you. It's causing your spirit to be down. For joy brings life, but anger, it just withers away your bones. It's in the word for us, and it may not be easy. And I want to comfort someone in knowing that it may not be easy, and you might cry and you might be afraid of what you find when you actually realize, like, dang, maybe I haven't forgiven the things that this person has done for me for 10 years. Maybe I haven't forgiven the things that this person did for me 15 years ago. But the thing that helped me the most is looking to Jesus. Genuinely looking to him and being like, God, I don't know how to do this. And in that moment, when he asked me that question initially, I was so overwhelmed, because God, I'm like, I'm valid in the way that I feel. They did hurt me. I don't know how to forgive someone who actually hurt me. And I was like, God, but like the principle of it all, it goes against what I believe. But then he was like, but what did I do? What did Jesus do? And Jesus forgave the people who killed him. He forgave his family when they kicked him out of Nazareth and tried to kill him. And he believed God's purposes and promises are so powerful, because the people who tried to kill him then in Nazareth on the cliff ended up writing books in the Bible. His own brothers wrote books in the Bible glorifying his name and who he was as the Messiah. Like, God, but how could you even do that? And then the Bible verse, of course, everyone talks about this, forgive others or else God won't, my Father in heaven won't forgive you. And I'm just like, oh my days, like Jesus, like if I don't forgive them, then I won't get my sins forgiven, because I know that I'm not perfect. And I know I've done some stuff, nothing too crazy, but I've done some stuff where it wasn't right. And I've asked God for forgiveness, and that security of knowing that he actually forgave me. And in those moments, I'm like, God, like if I go a minute without you being able to forgive me, I wouldn't even last. Like, I need you to forgive me all the time. I need your mercies every single day. And just the fact that I'm expecting that of God and not extending that to other people, especially if I'm call myself his daughter, then that's not right. And in that moment I said, but that's why you're God and I'm not. But then Jesus was fully human. He wasn't a demigod. Yes, he had the power of God within him, and he had that relation with God beforehand from the beginning, but he was fully human. He was tempted in every single way. He was betrayed. He was hurt. He was casted out. He was rejected. All these things Jesus experienced. So when I was in that moment, I said, dang, like it hurt me to my core, because I'm like, God, like I want to be like you. This whole process of life is just a process of sanctification. And when our sanctification is done, it's only done when the Messiah returns. And I just want to encourage anyone, if you're harboring onto any feelings towards someone or anyone in your life that they hurt you or they just disappointed you in any way, because sometimes disappointment hurts just as much, I would say find it in your heart to forgive them. First, to have a conversation with them and ask for the context of why they did what they did. Then after you ask for the context, find in your heart, maybe take some time and ponder it, bring it up to God, of course, take time, but find it in your heart to forgive them. And not even for them, but for you. And sometimes people are not receptive, and sometimes you will have to move on without closure, and you will still be in pain. But when you do move on and you're able to forgive, I promise you there's blessings on the other side. Blessings of freedom. I know the work that God is doing in me, it's for a greater purpose. These things he had to bring up because where I'm going, I can't have these roots in here. These roots will literally choke out the seed that he's planting, because the traumas, the pain, the bitterness, the resentment, the things that take root in your heart, they put a cast over your eyes and they give you a perspective that's not real. They distort your vision, because you won't be able to see what's true. You won't be able to see situations from God's eyes with empathy and love and grace, because you're seeing it of, oh, well, they did that, so everybody else is going to do it too. And that's just not the case. And even though they did that, give grace, because God gives grace to you. When you really fully recognize the fact that God gives you grace every single day over every single thing that you've done. He forgave you before you even knew him. He died on the cross for you when you were yet still sinning. Not just what you did in the past, but what you did yesterday, what you did last night for some of us. Like, he forgave you already. He died knowing that you would do all those things, and he gave you grace because he loved you that much. And I think if we loved humans as God did, if we loved just a little bit more, we may be able to provide grace. So I hope this video blessed you. I will see you all for episode 3. I'm going to try and post these weekly, based on the Holy Spirit's leading. But if you have any suggestions of any topics you would like for me to cover, feel free to drop them down below, and I would check out. Why did my brain just freeze like that? But I will talk to you guys next week. Bye. Oh, also follow me on my social medias. They're linked down below as well. Like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on your bell notifications, and we'll check you guys out later. Bye.